everybody. Welcome back to The Beard and the Bald. I am Paul Shirey, the beardless.
Not anymore. Yeah.
I shaved my beard last night. Chris, don't be upset with me.
You still have some stubble, though.
I didn't clean shave, so... Because the intent was not to shave and to, like, be clean shaven going forward. It was literally just... It's like a reset. Like resetting your game to start over.
Renewal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Logan's Run Carousel.
I've never seen Logan's Run, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
What kind of film nerd are you?
Fuck, the worst kind. Apparently. Fucking shill.
You are. Shill.
I am a shill for movies. I just love movies.
Pikachu's pocket.
That's right. Fucking damn paid for that Pikachu shit, bro. Let me tell you, I got a stuffy. And I got a Pikachu pop socket. So
wow.
I'm
Is that
easy.
what they're calling it nowadays? Just pop it in your socket and boom.
Pikachu pocket pussy.
I was thinking more
you could probably market those.
Oh my god.
So when I was in Japan, a quick Japan story, I went exploring. It's one of the few times I had like 2 hours that I could go explore. So I was like, fuck, man, I'm just going to go get lost. And I just started walking. And I passed this place and it said, I can't remember the exact, you'll have to forgive me on the exact wording, but it was something like gentleman's like relaxation place. And I could see there was like, it looked like what was like books and stuff in there. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, well, I'm a gentleman. So I just want to go in and see what the fuck this
That's
is.
debatable, but yeah.
Yeah, it is debatable. But anyways, I went in and it was basically a porn store. It was all like DVDs. And they had, it's funny because, you know, how like you go into like, say, well, not anymore, but like a Blockbuster or typically most stores now, they have like, you know, monitors playing something, you know, on TV or whatever. Yeah, so they just had like porn playing on all these different monitors. And then they just had guys browsing DVDs, which I just thought was kind of hilarious that like anybody goes to buy porn on DVDs anymore. But the place was pretty packed. Like, you know, it was not like overflowing, but you know, there was like a guy in each aisle. And anyways, I walked over and there was a shelf of like dirt cheap like pocket pussies and blowjob thingies, and it was a whole just like all these like, well, I think most of them were like men's masturbation toys, if that's what we're calling them. And it was funny, they showed, and I recorded it because I just, you know, it was kind of hilarious. And if you pick up the box and you look on the back, it shows like what everything looks like opened up, so you know what you're putting your dick in. And anyways, I just thought that was hysterical. And then I went, they had an upstairs area, so I was like, oh, there's a second floor. And I don't know if this is a common thing or what in Japan, but so I went to the second floor and it was like these almost like a little mini hotel or something. I still don't understand what it was. Maybe I'm a total fucking foreigner.Maybe one of our listeners has been to Japan and has experienced one of these. I don't know. But I went up there and there was like vending machines and it seemed like a hotel room hallway, but they're like really tiny, small rooms. And the like ceiling was really low. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and leave before something bad happens. So anyways, that was my experience in the gentleman's area. The derailed.
Wow. I really feel like you let Warner's down by what was supposed to be a family-friendly trip. Taking it trip.
I know, right? They're like, couldn't you go to like a nice anime store or something?
Seedy underbelly of Tokyo.
Dude, it's like there's like massage parlors like on every other corner.
I mean, I remember once we went on a trip to New Orleans for a set visit, and one of the writers just wanted to go to strip clubs.
Yeah,
he was broken up with his girlfriend, and he was depressed.
There's definitely strip clubs in New Orleans.
Oh yeah,
I didn't see any strip clubs in Japan. I wasn't really looking either. But I did see, again, like on every corner, it was like I mean, seen basically like prostitution, like like these massage places, and they had like menus out front. Like, if you like want to check out the menu for what you could get to eat, it's menu for what you could get to masturbate you or whatever.
Wow, how nice.
So there you go. Good times. But that's right next to the game place where you can go and play
And now that we have
claw
no more
machines.
listeners left, should we?
It's
Oh my
really,
stars.
oh my stars and garters. Um anyways, yeah, that was just a fun little trip to Japan. I have many other Japan stories that don't all
Most
involve
involving porn?
masturbation toys.
Uh, okay.
Uh, so moving on from that, because I know you want to talk about that the whole time, but we can't, Chris. And the fact that I no longer have a beard, but it'll be back in like 3 hours. That's how fast it grows back.
I hope so.
Yeah. It really does grow. Like probably by the end of the week, it'll be ridiculous. So this past week we lost a very unique voice in Hollywood,
Mhm.
director John Singleton.
Yeah.
Really kind of a sudden, loss. Had a stroke, much like we lost Luke Perry. Similar thing. It was pretty young still, so it was really sad and unexpected, and that's kind of how things happen. And
So yeah, he was 51. I mean, yeah, young guy. But it's funny because I remember John Singleton, whenever I hear that name, I always think of Boys in the Hood,
yeah,
right? And Boys in the Hood, he was 22 or 23 when it came out. And I mean, I remember, I was probably only about 10 years old when that movie came out, but I remember it being something that everybody was talking about, though, right? Like just one
oh
of
yeah,
those movies that everybody wanted to see, and it was just a conversation starter. And he was a really impactful voice, right? Like probably the most impactful black director voice since Spike Lee at that time, right? Like they were
yeah,
the two of them. And Singleton was a young guy, and Boys in the Hood is a movie that's held up really well over the years. I rewatched it not long ago, and it's a very good film. It's well done, it's well made. Um, it's interesting because a lot of it's funny. A lot of the articles that I've read about Singleton, they talked about Boys in the Hood, but they talked about how it was kind of, he was never quite able to recapture that
yeah,
level of success again. But I mean, you kind of have to bear in mind the fact though that this was kind of like such a cultural phenomenon, right? And such an unexpected hit that it's kind of hard to replicate that.
yeah,
But if you look at his filmography, I mean, he was a pretty consistent director, right? Like not all of his movies were great, but he had a lot of pretty good movies too. Like I really liked Higher Learning, I think is a good movie. Poetic Justice is pretty good. I like his Shaft. Well, Shaft, not his Shaft, but Shaft. I mean, I'm sure he had a great Shaft, but no, but his
really,
Shaft was
really set the wrong tone at the beginning of this podcast.
yeah. Shaft is a great is a good movie though. It's solid. I mean, Four Brothers is also a really solid action movie. Didn't care for his Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, but I also think that it was probably a movie that was kind of a paycheck film. You know,
Yeah.
uh, it was funny. I read a tweet that Jason Isaacs put up about him, and he was talking about how they did Abduction together. The Taylor,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
what's his name, the guy from Twilight, and it was he said that our movie was no masterpiece, but you were. And I think that that's kind of one of those things that seems to be the general thought about John Singleton, that he was a great guy and a great filmmaker, and yeah, he had a couple flops, he had a couple things that weren't great, but he made a lot of good movies too. And you know one of the things that's most important about John Singleton too is that he produced and financed Hustle and Flow, which was a huge, huge hit when it came out. Launched a bunch
Yeah.
of years, launched Taraji P
Terrence,
Henson and
Terrence Howard.
Terrence Howard, yeah, and I don't know. I think he was a really interesting, bold voice. I'm really sad that he's gone. He was
Yeah.
Rosewood too. That was a good movie as well.
I haven't seen all of his films, but Boys in the Hood, that movie, I think for a lot of people, just as you said, it left a mark.
Mhm.
It left a mark on Hollywood, and I think it left a mark on a lot of us too. And for me, watching Boys in the Hood, it was, I'm a white kid, you know, not exactly, you know, of that that area of that
You're not a
lifestyle.
black
You know what
kid
I'm
in
saying?
South Central LA. No.
Yeah.
neither,
So it's like,
neither was I. I mean, it was, a suburban kid watching it too,
yeah. So it
but
was like a picture into a world that I didn't experience.
mm,
And the movie does have there's like a joke in what you call it? Oh fuck, my brain's not working. It's too early in the morning. The movie about Ice Cube and them. My
no,
brain
Straight Out of Compton.
straight out of Compton. There it is. There's a joke in that where they're like giving Ice Cube shit about how Boys in the Hood was like a after school special. And it does have that kind of quality to it in a bit. There's little bits of that film, kind of like the music and some of it kind of plays that way, but at the same time, it also gives you a very kind of harsh, real look at that life in that location. That's just not a place that I grew up in, not a place that
No.
I'm familiar with, not a place that I probably ever will go to. Um, so it was for me, I think it had that kind of impact where it was an eye-opening kind of film in that sense.
You have to look
And
at it also in the context, when it came out. I don't think they were making a lot of those movies. They made a lot
no.
afterwards that were trying to be like Boys in the Hood.
Oh yeah, like Menace to Society and everything. There's like a lot of movies that were trying to like
And I
ride
mean,
the
I would say that
coattails.
Menace to Society is probably a better movie than Boys in the Hood, and I think that a lot of the ones that came after might be better, but Boys in the Hood was kind of the one that pushed the envelope, right, and
Yeah,
got
it's
the
the
other
one
one.
that like kind of started it all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
mean, it showed that those voices, wanted they needed to be heard, and people
it
wanted to hear that.
it's like kind of it reminds me in a way like when Platoon was the first kind of major
Yeah,
Vietnam movie to come
big
out,
Vietnam movie. Yeah.
and that kicked off a wave of Vietnam movies, right? And I would say that some of the Vietnam movies that came out after Platoon were better than Platoon, but it was just but it was the first, and I think Boys in the Hood also is kind of, I mean, people talk about Spike Lee and stuff too, but he wasn't doing movies about South Central LA. He was doing movies about New York, and it was a different lifestyle. He wasn't doing
Yeah.
gangsters. It was a little different.
Yeah. Very much so.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, it's a tragic loss. It's the loss of a voice, but it's like I say with all of these people that we lose that have contributed to this art form, they left a legacy. I actually bought Boys in the Hood on iTunes a couple days ago just because I was like, man, I really want to watch it, and I was kind of shocked, like all this shit that I fucking pay for, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, everything. I was like, none of these have Boys in the Hood. What the fuck? So I had to go buy
I
it,
think
and
it's
that's
on
fine.
Crackle,
Fuck. It's fucking.
which is
I
free.
On Crackle? I don't think I have Crackle.
Crackle's free. We don't get Crackle here anymore, but we get the movies on Crackle on another app. And let's see, drama. I think
I
it's
love some free Crackle.
Crackle. No, it's actually not.
It's code for something. Fucking
Um,
Bumber in his fucking crack rock.
I have to say that one of the other things that's kind of his family now has been using it as kind of a platform to talk about high blood pressure and stuff like that. And you and I have talked about our efforts to stay relatively fit, you know, at times, because I think we both are, we both work out and we both try to stay fit. But I've struggled with high blood pressure my whole life, right? Like since I was
Yeah.
very, very, very young, and I've been on medication for it since I was about 20, and I'm not an overweight person either. I'm not. It's just I have a genetic predisposition to it,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people do have a genetic predisposition to it, and you really do have to kind of get it under control because it could be really dangerous if it's not checked, if it's left unchecked. And I think a lot of people, they don't go to doctors and stuff like that because they don't want, to get any bad news. But the problem is if you get bad news early, then
Yeah. You can prevent it.
it could really prevent it. It can really kind of save your life. And you look at, and people kind of think, well, I'm not in horrible shape, so I'm probably fine. John Singleton wasn't in terrible shape either. If you look at him, he wasn't that overweight. He was
Yeah.
kind of, he
Well,
looked
same with
like he
Luke
was a
Perry.
normal guy. Luke Perry looked like he was in great shape for a guy in his 50s, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, if it might have been preventable, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Singleton maybe wasn't on his meds. Maybe he was. I don't know. But it's the same thing, with diabetes and things like that. I had a friend of
Yeah.
mine who went into a diabetic coma, and he never thought that he had diabetes, and he was an overweight guy. And, and he's fine now, like he's doing better now, but it's just, it's one of those things, people need to be mindful of their health, and they need to work out, and they need to, it leads us back to that whole thing, where people are talking about body shaming and complaining. It's come up again because everybody's complaining about how Thor is treated in Avengers. I'm not one to body shame at all, and it takes all kinds of people, but you do have to be healthy, right? You really do, because you won't live a long life if you're not healthy. And
we can try and do this body positivity thing, but that doesn't change science.
it's fine if you're, you could be heavy, but as long as you're healthy, but it's for most people, I think when they're significantly overweight, they're not healthy, and everybody's got a healthy weight for them to be at, and it's not necessarily the average. It could be above average, it could be higher than average, but you have to have certain things, like there need to be certain baselines of cardiovascular health and stuff like that, and just to keep going. And as we get older, it gets harder to stay in shape, and it gets harder to metabolize food and keep weight off. I've gained a couple pounds over the years, and I work out a lot more than I ever did before. You really have to watch what you're eating. And I work out now, 4 or 5 hours a week, and it's important. You really have to do that, and it's a sacrifice you have to make, and it's just maintenance, right? It's maintenance. It's like getting your car serviced. It
really is. Yeah,
you have to do it. You really do. If you want to stay healthy and you want to stay in shape for the people that you love and for yourself.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah, no, it's just yeah, I know. It's just I feel bad.
No, I'm just kidding. But you're right. I mean, it's something we've discussed multiple times.
And a lot of people, I think, need reality checks. It's live in some people live in a bubble, and they just don't. It's hard, especially because a lot of us have jobs where we don't move around a lot, right? I mean,
that's kind of like
blogger is not necessarily a physically challenging job.
I'm telling you, like, if I didn't go to the gym each day, I mean, I could easily just become that vampire in Blade that's just in the fucking catacombs at the computer and just be like a big blob, and that's just that's no way to live, man.
No.
So get up and move. Don't just sit at your computer all day. It really does. It's not that hard. Do it for John Singleton.
Move your body.
Diabetes. Okay.
Wilford Brimley is still, Wilford Brimley did have diabetes though, and he got it checked, and he's still alive.
Well, he's still, once you have it, type 2, you have it for life.
Yeah, but he gets it treated though.
Diabetes.
And he's on, he's still on Twitter, and he's still going.
Have you ever seen Diabetes Cat?
No.
Google it after the podcast.
Okay.
Diabetes. So moving on to another little news tidbit here. Looks like John Cena was going to be joining the Fast and Furious franchise.
Family. He's joining the family.
His family. What I think is interesting, and it's Vin Diesel.
Not as a bad guy though.
Unknown. Yeah. Vin Diesel announced it on his Instagram, where he had his sunglasses on and was talking about what's happening. I can't do a Vin Diesel voice, but of course he was going on a little rant with his head tilted back, and then he pans the camera over, and there's John Cena, and it's kind of funny, you think that he would be all pumped up and in a tank top, or kind of it's kind of just matching the Vin Diesel intensity. But he pans back, and there's John Cena in a suit and tie, with his hair all combed, just smiling. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. John Cena's joining. It's not what I expected. The way they did the reveal, it was almost like this nerdy kid that just got a job. They're like, hey, come on over here, John Cena. Hi, guys. Wow. I'm going to be in Fast and Furious. Can't wait. But anyways, we know that John Cena is definitely a big hulking son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't help but think that this is The Rock's replacement.
Oh, no doubt.
Because, it's, now you have The Rock, a.k.a. Dwayne Johnson, spinning off in his own Fast and Furious movie.
And notoriously, he hates Vin Diesel. I mean, he's not made a secret of it.
No, and yeah, they had that drama on the set, the last film, where The Rock was like calling out. He wouldn't say his name, but he was like basically said that Vin Diesel was like a candy ass, and they just butted heads big time.
Doesn't seem to care for Tyrese either.
No, did you see the video where he like tore Tyrese's album a new asshole?
Yeah.
It
He was
was like,
Tyrese was really upset too because Hobbs and Shaw delayed Fast and Furious a year, you know.
he's like, I need to work. It's the only job I can get.
Well, I mean, I think he probably makes a lot of money for that in that
I
franchise,
know.
you know, and it's I get it, you know, they want to keep it going, and I'm not surprised that The Rock's not coming back. I think it's a big loss to the franchise, though. The Rock not coming back, even if it's not in just a small role, it is a loss to the franchise because The Rock does bring in a good chunk of the audience, and if you look at the success of those movies, the way that they've performed over the years, I mean, when Dwayne The Rock Johnson joined the franchise, it went to another level, you know,
Yeah.
and so they need some kind of replacement. And
Well,
Cena is
I think
Cena's a
Cena
good
could do
choice.
it.
He
I
is
think
he's a
Cena
very
could
good
do it.
choice. And he's in a suit. I'm sure he's playing like kind of a government agent, like you know, Scott Eastwood if he was more interesting and more in that world.
It's so weird that Scott Eastwood hasn't happened. It's
Well,
gotta be. It's
he's
gotta
not
be.
a very good actor though. I
I
mean,
know,
no
but
offense to
Yeah,
Scott
yeah, I
Eastwood,
know.
but
I mean, he's got the look. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got the
he's
look.
been
But
removed from a few movies too. I mean, I remember hearing that he was supposed to be a big part of Live by Night, and they cut the character out.
yeah, it's
He
a
does.
weird.
He's a great looking guy. I don't necessarily think he's a great actor. I mean, not that he's necessarily given a chance to be really good in anything yet.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
haven't really seen what he can do, but I can't say that I'm very impressed. I mean, he wasn't that impressive in the last Fast and Furious. It was kind of
No, he's like kind of a
a
pussy.
poor man's Paul Walker.
That's like an insult to Paul Walker, because Paul Walker was at least like a badass.
Oh, Paul Walker was great. Paul Walker was great in those
But
movies.
Scott Eastwood's he's just kind of a pussy.
Paul Walker kind of really, I don't know, Paul Walker kind of really fit into that world, you know, but
Yeah. Oh yeah.
he didn't have you need a big personality, I think, and you know, John Cena is a big personality, so I could see
And I
him.
think that's what it is with
Oh,
Scott Eastwood is he doesn't have, or at least he hasn't displayed like a big personality. You know, he's not like his dad in that sense.
they need a, you know, I'm curious as to who the heavy is going to be in the next Fast and Furious. I wonder if Charlize Theron's going to be back
Well,
somehow.
that's what I was gonna say. I mean, Charlize is still out there, so her character wasn't killed. So, you know, she could potentially return.
They've apparently been chasing Denzel Washington for years, though,
I
and
think
now,
did we talk about that last week? I think we
yeah,
did.
and now the rumor is that it's going to be Will Smith.
That would be pretty crazy.
It would be a good choice.
I'd like to see Will Smith as a bad guy. That'd be pretty
Yeah,
awesome. In like a crazy ass franchise like that, that'd be fun.
yeah.
I'm down with it. So,
I'm
anyways,
wondering if Charlize Theron's going to be a good guy now, though, because
I know,
they always
well,
had to do
that
that.
is kind of interchangeable with the Fast and
Yeah,
Furious franchise. Like fucking
family.
these dudes, you know, Jason Statham like kills their friend. He kills Han, and then they're just like, you could, you're forgiven.
Well, Charlize Theron killed, you know, Vin Diesel's ex, the mother of his child.
You know? Chris Hemsworth's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hemsworth's very upset about that. I don't know if he is. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. At this point, you know, I'm same as you. I like the Fast and Furious movies. They're a lot of fun. So I couldn't see any reason that I wouldn't go see the next one, regardless if The Rock's in it or not.
Hobbs and Shaw is high on my list for this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. Hobbs and Shaw looks like a blast. That looks
I'm
like
wondering, I'm wondering if Idris Elba is going to become good though. Maybe he'll be in the next Fast and Furious as his character, as a good guy. Who knows?
Hey, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You really don't, because he would fit into that universe pretty well.
Anything could happen. So
I mean, Idris Elba does seem like a Fast and Furiously type actor, right? I mean, he does seem like he would fit, right?
Yeah, he's like made for it.
And so does Cena, to be honest. So it's not bad. Not a bad choice.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that you could throw into that franchise that would work out just fine. And I think it's a fun, you know, sort of different thing for a lot of actors to do, you know, or even filmmakers for that matter. You know, it's like it's really just like let's just go have some fun, you know,
Mm.
get crazy rather than doing all the serious stuff. It's a good change.
Join the family.
It's all about family.
Family, 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 family.
I am Groot.
Soy Groot.
uh, so moving on to another little bit of news that was quite big this past week was Ron Howard saying that he is developing a Willow series for Disney Plus. Excuse me. Shit.
I mean, I have a soft spot for Willow. I know that there are a lot of people out there that don't like it, but I do have a soft spot for it. I think it has an amazing soundtrack by James Horner.
Oh yeah,
Really
James
good
Horner's score is
soundtrack.
great.
And I do.
I was like, I remember that was used for like every fucking trailer ever for the longest time.
Right.
I remember they used it for Stargate.
They
I
use
remember
it
that
for
in the Stargate
Mask
trailer.
of Zorro as well.
Did they? Yeah, that sounds
so.
about right. It was pretty interchangeable. They used it a lot. But anyways, I think it's pretty cool. I went and saw Willow in the theaters when I was a kid and loved it, and I thought it was a cool movie. I really liked Val Kilmer in it. I don't think Val Kilmer is going to come back at this point. I don't think we'll see Mad Mardigan return.
No.
He's just not in that just not healthy enough for that role at this point. But
I think Warwick Davis could come back though.
Yeah, and that's the intent. He's
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean,
Warwick is funny as hell too.
Warwick's like our age. Like
Life's Too Short. He's really funny on that show.
I haven't seen it, but
oh, it's great.
I actually
you never saw it with Liam Neeson.
No, I think I saw one episode.
Like, it's something. I have a hilarious idea. So he comes and I tell him, "You have AIDS." So that's not really funny, Liam.
That's messed up. Well, I think it's it's a world that's ripe for exploration. I always wanted to, return back to the world of Willow, and this is
sure. Even
great
if the
child of George
movie,
Lucas, and Ron Howard.
You could do a lot with it, and
absolutely.
And
you could take it to new heights, even. I mean, there's like a whole.
You could make it a lot better than the movie. Really,
for sure. Jesus, the special effects alone. Like, I remember, kind of being somewhat wowed by them as a kid, but it has not aged well in that sense.
Well, it had the first ever morphing.
Oh, yeah.
The wizard, yeah. She changes.
Yeah, she kept changing back and forth, yeah.
Yeah. I really do have a soft spot for Willow, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I think it's at a point now where that could easily be a best movie you never saw, because I think it's old enough now that a lot of people just like, I've just never seen it. Like it's probably
a lot of people don't like it though. It's funny, it's got a reputation for not being good, but it's like, I don't know. When I was a kid, like Willow was a pretty big movie, and I still think it held. I mean, I watched. It's been a while since I last saw it, but it was probably not more than 10 years ago, and I felt it held up relatively well.
It's been a hot minute since I've seen it, but
yeah, I mean, it's probably been about 10 years.
Multiple times.
I mean, I'd have to watch it again.
But I remember it very fondly.
Me too. Absolutely.
Quotable.
Yeah.
Peck.
And I mean, Joanne Wally Kilmer is still gorgeous. I mean,
well, she is in that. I don't know if she is now.
She looks great. I looked her up. She looks really good.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. Well, she was in movie with Ray Winston and Ian McShane, 44-inch chest. She was great in it.
I have not seen that one. I feel like such a failure. Every movie you keep mentioning, I haven't seen. I should quit.
You're just not good. I'm sorry.
You're just no good. That's all right. I'll make up for it. It's because I shaved my beard.
You know what else Joanne Wally Kilmer was in?
What?
Navy SEALs.
God, that movie's such a fucking travesty, but I loved it as a kid.
Oh my God. I loved it as a kid too. I watched it again not long ago. I mean, it's fun to watch. It's terrible, but it's fun to watch.
It's such a fucking... The fact they even call it Navy SEAL. I mean, Navy SEAls have to have like the biggest laugh ever with that fucking movie. I mean,
the soundtrack is something too, where they're all playing golf and it's like they're trying to do the volleyball scenes. They're playing golf in half shirts.
And they're just
And
always doing
the soundtrack
crazy
is so
shit.
funny too. And you see like Charlie Sheen, he's tearing around town blasting Gowan. Like,
I like the part where he like jumps off the bridge for like no reason.
yeah,
Like,
and
oh, I'll meet you guys there. Like he's
super,
gonna swim there. I'm like, what the
super
fuck?
racist in it too. He's super racist in it, and he's ripping off like Han Solo lines. Like when he blows up, when he shoots the thing. Boring conversation. Anyway, it's like, well, okay, I've seen Star Wars as well, Charlie. But I did like that movie as a kid.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a total fucking that's an 80s romp. I assume it's 80s. It's got to be 80s. No way that's 90s.
1990.
Fuck. It's
Yeah.
right on the cutoff.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I hope they can make something of Willow. I think it could be a really like kind of refined sci-fi show, like a fun, I think it could be a little more serious.
They have to work a way. They have to figure out a way, though, to kind of bring in a new audience, though, to it, and not necessarily rely too much on the original Willow. I mean, they could get it out there. They'll put it on Disney Plus, and people will see it.
Sure.
But
Well, I think a lot of it will come down to who's the additional cast. Who else?
And it won't necessarily hook anybody. That's the thing, Willow. Like it would hook people like our age. But then again, I mean, Cobra Kai was able to do it very well.
Oh man, and I'll talk about that later. But like,
Yeah.
my kid isn't like he doesn't just like Cobra Kai. He loves Cobra Kai.
My girlfriend really likes Cobra Kai. We're about to start season 2, and she never saw any of the Karate Kid movies because she's a bit younger, and she loves Cobra Kai. So for me, that's kind of the gold standard. If you're going to do a follow-up show, you need to be able to do something that kind of goes back to the original, but not too much.
Yeah, well, you want something that
does its own thing as well.
Yeah, and that's definitely a strength of Karate Kid, or Cobra Kai rather. Same thing. So, anyways, we'll see what happens. Disney Plus, they're definitely lining up a lot of interesting shows. I guess the big reveal will be if they can pull it off.
I mean,
many of them look good, but we'll see.
Well, they need to start off with big shows because they need to be powerful out of the gate, right? And I'm pretty sure that they're gearing up to be, taken seriously.
Well, and that's part of, Mandalorian is a great start. And it looks really good. I saw the trailer and the behind the scenes and all that other shit at Celebration, and I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be a fun show. It's got it really feels like a episode 4 kind of show, like takes place in that kind of environment and that world, like kind of the seedier, like Mos Eisley cantina type place.
I do find that we're on the cusp of major Star Wars overkill, though. We've talked about that before, and I do feel like that's a big risk.
I think we've already hit it, really. I mean, I think, but honestly, I think maybe that's why The Mandalorian is coming at a good time, where that fatigue has set in for like the movies, and people are looking to kind of slow down and just, maybe a show is what will suit Star Wars better now.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So another interesting thing, and kind of, I don't know, troubling in a sense, the thing that happened this past week. So 6 days ago, the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog came out.
Oh God!
And apparently, there are serious, like, rabid Sonic fans.
Yeah,
and many of them are just like have lost their minds over the look of Sonic.
It's so annoying too, because you just know these are all kind of 40-year-old men, right? That are not even gonna go see the movie. I mean, it seems like it's designed for children, right? Do you think kids are gonna have any problem with what Sonic's teeth look like?
Sonic feels like the Smurf. It's like this is the Smurfs audience. Like, to be honest,
none of the 40-year-old men are gonna go see it. It's so stupid. And now though, they're going back and they're gonna change the look of Sonic now to please the fanboys and to make them even more entitled than they already are.
Yeah.
Like, so the director, it's such a slippery slope.
Yeah. The director took to Twitter and announced it, and he said, and this is Jeff Fowler, the director, came out and said, "Thank you for the support and the criticism. The message is loud and clear. You aren't happy with the design and you want changes. It's going to happen. going to happen. Everyone at Paramount and Sega are fully committed to making this character the best he can be. And then hashtag Sonic movie, hashtag gotta fix fast. So there's, there's another side to this argument too about how, people are championing the VFX people that have worked on this movie already for like a year, who now have to work, like overtime to go and like basically fix this and redo it. So
And
that
that's a really thankless job too. I mean, these people work for like slave wages.
For
They
sure.
do. There's all kinds of those VFX companies in Montreal, and they make really shitty salaries. They're not well paid, and they work crazy hours.
And some people, they just don't give a fuck. They're like, oh, I don't fucking care. They need to fix it. They need to change it. And I think, this is, to me, it feels like we're rewarding the wrong group here. That's not to say that you can't go back and make changes. I think they did the same thing with Apocalypse for X-Men Apocalypse, because when he was released, people were like, he looks like somebody from Power Rangers. And
I mean, he still did in the movie though.
They weren't really wrong. But they did change a few things to try and fix it, but not enough to make a big. I mean, I saw cosplay of Apocalypse at Comic-Con. It was like 1,000 times more impressive than
why
what
are
we
people so upset about Sonic's teeth though? I don't see what the big deal is.
I don't know. I mean, they're trying to make him talk. I don't know how they make him talk without teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, when we speak, like right now, I'm using my teeth. Your teeth,
help. They're articulate
and everything. So, I don't know. I don't know what it's frustrating when you see people act like assholes online and then get rewarded for it.
I mean, I find honestly, it's something that I've been kind of looking at Game of Thrones that way, right? Like I feel like everybody wants everything to be everything to everyone, and it's never going to happen. It's not possible.
No, you can't. You cannot please everyone all the time. You can't.
No, you can't.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
So, anyways, they're gonna quote unquote fix it, whatever that means. I'll guarantee you, whatever they do, still won't please everyone.
People complain about everything. People are complaining about Avengers Endgame too, and it's now one of the highest grossing movies of all time. People just complain about everything. They always will, and they're never going to stop.
Nope. Haters drinking that haterade,
and they don't even need to. I mean, I think they're just wasting money on Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, it was never. I don't think it was ever going to be a big blockbuster anyway. I mean, they should just.
Yeah, I mean, I have to wonder like how much, like, cost wise. Can Paramount justify that?
Like, this is your tentpole movie? No, it's ridiculous.
It's really weird, man. People are like rabid over Sonic. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I mean, it was a fun Sega Genesis game, but the rich mythology of Sonic the Hedgehog or something is.
Well, there's like mountains of comics, like and even my son, he used to read the comics. And I guess maybe that's part of it too, like the comics of the TV show, the animated show.
But people need to grow up, though, Paul. That's the thing. They really do. If these guys, it's guys in their 40s, complaining about Sonic the Hedgehog, I mean, if that's the thing that you're complaining about, look at all the things that are wrong in the world around you. And if Sonic the Hedgehog is the thing that gets you the most upset, then you really need to reprioritize things, man.
Venezuela, Syria,
it's just
Sonic.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that people are that upset about Sonic the Hedgehog.
And it's even more ridiculous that people are upset that another movie is about to be the #1 highest grossing movie of all time, because apparently that's a problem. that a new movie is going to be the highest grossing movie. Like,
so they should just pull movies from release then, if they get to the point that they're about to become the highest grossing.
Whoa, we can't have this. So over the weekend, I just saw people, because Avengers Endgame this past week passed Titanic, which was the second highest grossing movie of all time, directed by James Cameron, and is now headed towards Avatar, and is most likely going to beat Avatar.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's like this weird, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, where did you see this? Because people say, oh, all the Marvel fans are bashing Avatar. I haven't seen any of this. I'm like, who are you following? Like, where
Yeah,
are you
and
seeing?
I don't get the idea of, you have to bash something, it has to be your thing against something else. Like, you can like both things, though.
Yeah, this is the biggest problem with these weird sects of fandom is where they just draw a line in the sand of everything they like.
It's the same thing with the DC versus Marvel stuff. I just don't
Well, and
understand it.
that's a
Like, you
big
can
part of
like
it.
you can like both. You really can. There's no rule
But
saying you
apparently,
can't.
but you got to see there to a lot of these people, you can't. You can't
I
like
don't
both.
get it. It's so
Have to
stupid.
like one more than the other. Uh, and I don't know, man. Like the hardcore Psycho DC fans really are the absolute fucking worst.
I just don't get it, though. I don't
Like
understand
they
it.
are just, and this isn't speaking to all DC fans. So those of you that are listening and I'm not speaking to you. You know who the fuck I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Uh, and they are the worst. Like they really are the fucking worst. And they're just like, they absolutely troll everything. Like there's everything is a side comment. So I saw this tweet by this guy. I don't even know who he is, but I saw this tweet and I was just like, oh god. And I screenshot it and I retweeted or tweeted it out. And I just wrote like LOL LOLK as in, haha, yeah, whatever. And it was all like this whole James Cameron did this and that and he did it without 20 movies and he's, blah blah blah, he's so great and all this shit and trying to basically diminish, what Avengers Endgame has done uh by somehow pulling out that Avatar is suddenly this great movie that everybody loves and respects.
I gave
And I'm
Avatar,
just like,
I gave Avatar a 7 on 10 when I reviewed it for JoBlo.
yeah, I mean,
Very
are we,
underwhelmed
are
by
we
it. And
really saying
it's
Avatar is some kind of masterwork? Yeah, it made a fucking ton of money. I
it's
get
funny.
that.
Me and Jenna Bush, we were the two critics that reviewed it for JoBlo, and neither of us gave it a rave. I think I gave it a 7, and I think she gave it a 6. Neither of us were that crazy about it. I mean, it was fine, but it's Dances with Wolves or A Man Called Horse. Again, like it's not a particularly original film. It's really well done. The effects are great, and I know that people really got into the world, but I prefer Titanic over over Avatar, to be
Oh,
honest.
by far. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not I've never, I've never championed Avatar. I remember I saw it in the theater and I thought it was like the effects and everything were amazing.
I've
And
only
it
seen it the
looked
one time.
really great in 3D, but story wise, it's so basic and it's such a ripoff. It's essentially Dances with Wolves, and it's just not an original great movie by any measure outside of the effects.
I'll tell
And
you,
that's where Cameron excels. Is like he always and that's what he's always done is he'll come around with some new effect thing, and that's where he wows people and he pulls them in with that,
I tell
and
you,
that's
I'll,
fine.
I'll tell you, I liked Alita a lot more than I liked Avatar.
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved Alita. Um, it was a way more entertaining film and far more original, I think. Um, but ultimately, listen, Cameron can have his success. He can have these. He's got two great achievements. Even if I don't think Avatar is that great, I still don't. Um, he held that record for 20 years and now he's going to be, his movie's going to be unseated and that's just the way things go. And ultimately it's interesting, but who the fuck cares? Like, what is this personal stake that people have in these things where they like argue and they, try to prove a point over, you're arguing over what movie made 2 billion first and like this is where your time is being spent. Like, come on, nobody's diminishing what Cameron has done, but time moves on and things change, and that's just the way it goes.
People just get on these kind of hate bandwagons, though, and it gets to be crazy. I mean, it's funny. The same thing is happening with the people that really, really, really hate Brie Larson now. Like, I mean, I get how maybe she rubbed a couple people the wrong way, but I mean, you're getting body language experts that are putting out theories that, that Chris Hemsworth and Don Cheadle hate Brie Larson because look at this. And she's trying to dominate them in the conversation. It's just so, even, Don Cheadle is hitting Twitter and saying it's absolutely ridiculous. It just makes no sense. People get so carried away these days.
Yeah.
You can dislike somebody, absolutely, and you can dislike Brie Larson if you want. You could find her annoying, whatever, but this crazy, crazy, rabid hate where it becomes this all-consuming thing.
Yeah.
Save it for something that actually deserves it. Like it's so stupid. It's so dumb.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm not a big Brie Larson fan of late, but I can't think of the last time I made a YouTube video
Yeah,
dissecting that.
yeah,
And I'm not
so
going
dumb.
to. Like, hey, live and let live, like she can continue to do her thing, and I wish her all the best, and I wish she would make some movies like Room again that are actually good, but whatever, like it is what it is. But I don't have that time. I don't have enough time in my life to dedicate to a video about hate. But all these anyways, all these posts now, these little jabs, they're all showing like James Cameron like putting on sunglasses and looking smug and all this other shit about how he didn't need 20 movies, or like the media aggressively promoting his movies, and didn't need the Academy to bend rules to have his movies win Oscars, even though that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
But there's like this weird championing of James Cameron simply because Avengers Endgame is going to beat his record. And I just don't get it. Like, what is
there's
the defense
there's
there?
also inflation too. The money that it made, $1 billion 10 years ago or 12 years ago is different than $1 billion now. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
you have to adjust things for inflation. I mean, if they do really, I mean, Gone with the Wind and Star Wars both are more successful. I mean, it really is, and there's a lot of movies that are. It's so dumb. People just need to give things context, and everything has to be the biggest ever, right? The biggest ever. This has got to be the biggest movie ever. This has got to be the biggest thing ever, and it's just relax.
I don't
Enjoy
get
what
it.
you enjoy. Enjoy what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Be happy that your movie that you love so much is making the money that it's making, because that means that the people involved with it will get to make more things that you like on the scale that you're used to.
Well, and people like Cameron are going to continue. He's got fucking 4 more Avatar movies coming, so I don't know what people are complaining about, but I think that'll be a real test right there. Is Avatar 2 going to unseat Avengers Endgame? Who knows?
I'm
But also,
very
who
curious to
cares?
see how Avatar 2 does.
Yeah, I'm very curious in terms of, I think a lot of people went to the first Avatar because of, the spectacle of what it promised with like 3D and all that other stuff. But is that enough to carry it? I mean, you got to look at Star Wars now. People are
Yeah.
people aren't as invested as they were before. It still makes money, don't get me wrong. For the most part, at least if you're a Skywalker movie, if you're Solo, it's a different story. Um, but I think it'll be the true test to see
Yeah.
where people stand once, if Avatar 2 ever comes out.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
But from my perspective, from what I see, I don't like nobody's asking for those movies. I've never talked to anybody, including like just an average fan, and I've never had them, be like, man, when is Avatar 2 coming?
When I go to conventions, I don't see people dressed up as, guys from Pandora. It just
Never.
doesn't really,
Never.
it doesn't seem like it's had the big effect on pop culture that maybe the Marvel movies have.
I think
but
it
we'll
was
see.
yeah, I think it was more of a singular event, and
Yeah.
a noteworthy one for sure. Again, Cameron earned his kudos and then some, but you know, the culture changes and shifts, and new things take their place. That doesn't diminish what has come before. It's the next wave.
I mean,
It's not a line in the sand. It's
a good
just not what
example
it
of
is.
that is, Lego Movie was this massive hit, and then the
Yeah.
sequel came out, and it wasn't. And it's just sometimes things, they have a moment, and then the moment passes. But
Yeah.
it's still, though, we don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case for Avatar, though. Maybe it'll
No,
be
I mean,
huge.
hey,
We'll
fuck,
see.
who knows? Maybe it retakes the crown. Who knows?
Yeah,
But
never count out James Cameron.
no, no. I mean, Cameron, and that's what he's done. He's with his movies, he's gone, what, 6, 10 years, whatever it is, between films, because he's always got some new technological advancement or some shit that he wants to pimp. And it's typically a revolutionary thing. But it's usually the technology that's revolutionary, not the movie itself.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly, chomping at the bit for Avatar 2, which, like, ironically enough, out of all of this, will be pimped by Disney.
Yeah,
because it's
true.
now a Disney property. So there's that. Anyways, I think everybody needs to just chill the fuck out over this bullshit.
About
Over
everything. People need to chill out
fighting.
about
You're
everything.
fighting over how an animated character looks. You're fighting over which movie makes 2 billion, and you're drawing a line in the sand of fandom. And you can't just enjoy all of these things. Why can't you just enjoy everything? Why does it
People
have to
need to chill out about our next subject too, about Game of Thrones. I mean, I get, I get how people were kind of maybe underwhelmed by the Battle of Winterfell. Um,
I was underwhelmed.
yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I was too a little bit. But it's just, I mean, I feel like every decision they make now is under such scrutiny. I mean, we're recording this on a Monday morning, and it was episode 4 last night, and people just get so upset about every little thing, though. Now it's the Brienne Jamie thing, because maybe they identified with the character in a different way, and it's just, it can't be, excuse me, it can't be everything to everyone, and people seem to want, they get, if the formula departs even slightly from the way they think it's going to go, they get so upset and they just can't deal with it, you know? For some reason, everybody at the end of Battle of Winterfell seemed to think that, Jon Snow was going to be the one to kill the Night King, and they had Arya do it. And I thought that was a great moment. I love Arya as a character. Yet there was a whole, subset of fandom that went crazy, calling her a Mary Sue, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
because if anybody's not a so-called Mary Sue, it's definitely Arya Stark.
yeah, I mean, Arya's like kind of the perfect example of how not to be a Mary Sue. So
she's been through the shit, man. They put her through the ringer.
I mean, for real, like you talk about a character who has like sacrificed and just been through like one tragic event after another, and then just like, you know, literally like fought through the mud and muck to become who she became. Arya is definitely just a character built, from the start. And it's like a character with an arc, a character that, you could invest in and like hope for, and somebody that you've seen just struggle so much to become what she's become. She's absolutely not a Mary Sue.
That last scene of her and the Hound on the road, though, to Westeros, that made me smile.
Yeah, it's a nice little reunion of the two, and I think you could. I think I said it in my review. I was like, you could easily make a spin-off show of like Arya and the Hound on the road. Just getting in
Adventures.
Adventures, basically just killing people. But
I was kind of sad that John though said goodbye. Didn't even really say goodbye to Ghost. Didn't give him a nice pat on the head.
Yeah, like what's that? I said that in my
on the
review,
nose.
and I surmised that it was
A good boy.
too expensive for him to go and pet Ghost, but.
Yeah.
You think he would at least go over and like pet the motherfucker. Instead, he just stands there and like.
I mean, his dog lost an ear. He lost an ear.
Nobody's even trying to bandage him.
Yeah, exactly. Poor guy. He's been such a good and loyal friend. Whatever, he's gonna have a lot more fun with the Wildings than he ever did with John. It's funny. My girlfriend said something interesting. She said, "You know what? Jon Snow probably never played with him though. Gave him stick with him, threw balls with him,
Well,
he probably never really played with him. Didn't really have time.
They just didn't show many, they didn't show the interactions that were like they were in the book with Ghost. Like Ghost had a much, larger role, and there was more about. I know that sounds crazy, but not so much Ghost as a character, but Ghost as like a companion.
Yeah.
There was just more to him. So it's a shame. I feel like Ghost, out of all the characters in this series, at least, or creatures, whatever, was the most shortchanged. And that's probably the last we'll see of him in this show, which is just too bad because, Ghost has always been a companion to Jon Snow, and I don't see why he would send Ghost away.
Like, I mean, there's only 2 episodes left. There's only 2 episodes left, though. I mean, and they've got a lot to do in the next 2 episodes. If that's anything, if I have any complaints about the season, it is that it's moving a little too fast. I would have liked it to have been 10 episodes, maybe instead of 6 episodes.
Yeah. Well, it's. I think we need, I don't know. It's a tricky thing. I don't think, again, it's like we were talking about. You're not going to please everybody all the time,
No, no,
but
definitely not.
you
And
know,
it's
it's
hard to end.
definitely
It's hard to end these things too when your expectations are so high.
yeah. And it's hard to. The
People
other
will
thing
not be
too
pleased,
is
and not everybody. There's going to be such a backlash against whomever, however it ends, right? My
oh
prediction though is that a lot of the main characters are not going to die, are going to live, because HBO would be stupid to kill them off, because 5 years down the road, you know, they have a couple shows that haven't done too well. Game of Thrones reboot or Game of Thrones sequel series, and if you
yeah
could bring back some of the original stars and the roles that made them huge, I could see it happening. It really wouldn't surprise me.
yeah. Presumably you could do that, and maybe it would work better in a sense because you're not going off of George R. R. Martin's books. You know what I'm saying? Like you could, you kind of have a clean slate in that way. You could continue it however you want to continue it. Maybe, Martin consults a little bit. It's very similar to what they're did with Star Wars, which has had mixed results. But if people love the characters enough, then they survive. Then you could do that, and then introduce a whole new wave of characters. I would do kind of like a Star Wars thing and set it, like 20 years down the line or something, though.
Mhm.
Or at least 10 years, something, give it a gap of time, and then continue it. But yeah, what I've missed more than anything in this season of Game of Thrones, because it really feels kind of like a Cliff Notes
Mhm.
season of Game of Thrones, because everything is moving so fast, and they really have tried to work in those smaller moments. But when you look at the entirety of the series so far, there's so many small moments that go into creating the show, and always been a slower burn. This is not a slow burn season. This is very fast and furious. And I just missed those little moments, like when we saw that Missandei was captured and in the capital. You just know that if this was a normal season, like a normal longer season, you'd have a moment where Cersei is like talking to Missandei, which would be a very interesting scene, to have Cersei kind of like interrogating Missandei about Daenerys. And you would get something, you would get a little more out of that, and you'd get a little more for Missandei too, where you'd be able to see what her mindset is and
Mhm.
how she operates while she's in custody, basically, and unsure of what's going to happen to her life. What does she say about Daenerys to Cersei?
Yeah.
Anything? What does she offer? And the last thing we see is her getting her head lopped off, and yelling out Dracarys before she dies, which is cool and everything. But we still didn't get as invested in what was going on there. And I
All
think that if
that's
it were a longer season, we would have. So I think
all
that's
that
something
said.
I miss. But
All that said, I'm very much enjoying this season.
oh, sure, I mean, it's the end. For me, it's a journey. It's kind of an emotional journey, and like I had my mouth was agape when Rhaegal got fucking
Oh my
speared.
god,
I didn't see that
my
coming at all. So
girlfriend still hasn't recovered. She was so upset.
I was like, oh fuck! Like they just straight up killed him, and I kind of had assumed that Rhaegal would end up being John's dragon, and it's like, well, that's it. And as soon as he died, I was like, man, there's no way that fucking Drogon's gonna live.
No.
Like at this point, I'm like, I think all the dragons are just gonna be killed.
Well, my girlfriend again said something interesting. She said it's kind of, if you watch the season, it's been about all the magic leaving Westeros, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. It's funny though. Game of Thrones. My one complaint about Game of Thrones is that in Canada, okay, so it's a little bit different the way we have it set up here. We don't have HBO Go. We have this thing called Crave, right? Because
Yeah.
Bell is licenses all the HBO product, and everything drops at the same time, and whatever. But Crave is just not as well designed as HBO. I think because the problem is that they've never had to deal with as many people watching it at the same time as maybe HBO Go has. And
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, if you try to watch it through the Crave app, there have been some really serious streaming issues. Like yesterday, I tried to watch it through the Crave app and I got booted off. Right, and that happens to a
Really?
lot of people. It was okay because I had a backup. I was watching it on because I subscribed to Bell TV, right? So it's all like IPTV, and and it was okay. I was able to watch it. It's just the streaming quality is not as good as it is through the app, but it was fine. I was able to watch it well enough. But it's really become a problem though. Like online, a lot of people are talking about it, and people are getting booted off, and people are getting hiccups. They're not It's not that the streaming's all screwed up, but it's just that they're not able to access it for some reason, and it's because, and Crave has even said, it's because the demand is so huge, and they obviously did not anticipate what it would be like if you had millions of people tuning in. And boy, oh boy, that service. I mean, if there's a big debate right now going on in Canada about these like monopolistic TV services that are trying to block a lot of the smaller independents from coming and a lot of the streaming sites from coming, and it's not really working for them. It's a little bit like it was with taxis versus Ubers a couple of years ago, and they're in kind of like the last like attempt by these companies to stay relevant. And fuck, man, with an app like Crave, which I initially I thought was a great app, not holding up well at all with event programming like this, it's really like they're doomed, man. They're gonna go under.
Well, I use it through HBO Go, and I don't have any problems. So I don't know if it's
I think HBO Go just has a lot more money behind it and a lot more technical proficiency, and that's the problem.
It's possible. And because I'm reviewing it, so I basically watch the episode twice each week, like directly after. So I'll watch it, kind of absorb it, and I'll take a few notes on that first watch, and then the second watch is when I'll really kind of just go into it. I'll capture some quotes that I think are notable, and then go from there. Because reviewing a TV show, especially a weekly one, is very different than reviewing a film. So I used to get people like complaining, oh, it's a recap, and I'm like, you can't review these like a film.
Yeah,
it's not possible.
It's kind of tedious, I find, reviewing TV week after week.
Because
it's not a great.
You have to. Yeah, it's not the most fun. But I love
used
the
to
show.
do that. I used to do that for Penny Dreadful, and it was kind of grueling, especially if it wasn't like the greatest. I mean, I did it for the whole run of Ash versus Evil Dead, and after a certain point, especially if the show kind of goes through a couple a couple points where it's not as good, it becomes quite grueling, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it does, and it's like you and then when you get people that complain, you're just like, oh my god, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you can't review this without recapping the events. It's not that this isn't a one and done movie. This is a show that's carrying events from from. You've got to give the details, and there's like so many things happening. It's like
the only time you could ever really write like a legit review is the first episode and the last episode of the season, because then you could kind of look at things in context a bit, Yeah.
And I do, so what I'll do, and the way I do it is I kind of recap significant events. I don't recap every moment of the show. But I, give my commentary in terms of like how I see those events, shaping up. So it's in many ways, it's like we're watching the show together and we're kind of talking about it. And then what I'll do is I'll give like my final thoughts at the end, kind of like a, two or three paragraphs of, my overall thoughts. But it's, other than that, I like to personally, as a fan of the show, I like to like kind of capture those, those quotes that are like, oh shit. When those things kind of stick out, I like to put those in the review because I think they're interesting, and I hope that, they help kind of punctuate the events that are happening. There are a lot of things said last night in last night's episode where I was like, oh fuck, especially that shit between Varys and Tyrion. Each scene that those guys were in together, I was like, they're basically, talking a lot about drawing a line in the sand today, but that is kind of feels like what they're doing. And these are two guys that we've traditionally thought are like two of the smartest guys in Westeros. The most insightful and wise, and they're at odds with each other.
Yeah.
So that creates a very, and like where, when Tyrion's like, what happens to her, and Varys just stares at him, and Tyrion, gets it. He's like, please don't. But it's like I feel like Tyrion has become he's become blinded by Daenerys, and it's a surprising turn, because I'm siding with Varys on this one.
Oh, me too.
And I just it's weird seeing Tyrion so blinded by Daenerys, because he's usually wise to that shit. So I don't know. It's very interesting to see. I'm very interested to see like what happens with him. Because I don't know. I feel like the way it's being built is he's going to have a really big decision to make. Maybe he's the one that kills Daenerys. Who knows? We could speculate all day. But I'll tell you what, the next 2 episodes is going to be some fucking shocks and surprises.
Well, I'm sure. I think next week's going to be a pretty dramatic one. So how about the new Game of Thrones shows? It's interesting because I was reading an interview with one of the people that runs HBO, and they were talking about how it's really not as far along as people seem to think it is. Like the pilot that they're shooting for the one that's, I guess, a prequel with Naomi Watts. Like it's not a done deal, right? That this show is even going to happen. They're shooting a pilot, and they're really going to kind of see how it goes, and then they might totally change it, or it may not make it to air. And it's funny because the original Game of Thrones pilot apparently was completely reshot.
Yeah.
Like it was filmed quite a while before it ever aired, and they really workshopped it. And and I imagine that they don't want to set any kind of timeline. Like people shouldn't expect a Game of Thrones type show on the air for next year because it's going to take a while. And this show that they're talking about, the Jane Goldman one, may not happen. It may happen, it may not happen. Despite having Naomi Watts involved, it is still just a pilot, and we'll see.
Yeah.
They don't want to kill the golden goose, right?
Right. Yeah, and that one takes place, thousands of years prior to the events of the current Game of Thrones, which is interesting because you're wondering what does thousands of years ago look like? Because you kind of have to wonder, in the world of Westeros, what are the tech? Why don't they have the internet? And where's their spaceships? I know it's a fantasy world, but I can't help but think Jesus, you guys are gonna go thousands of years, so they're gonna be cave people? What the fuck?
Yeah, who knows?
But there's a whole other mythology that you can read. I actually have the Fire and Blood book that George R. R. Martin wrote, which is this whole, basically the history. It's the definitive history of Westeros, and goes all the way back to the Targaryens when they ruled in High Valyrian or Valerian, whatever. Dragons were abundant, and things were just very different back then. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they take with that. And that one is called The Long Night. So that's the name of that show. But apparently George R. R. Martin spoiled that, and he keeps saying the show I'm not supposed to call The Long Night. And it says the log line for that is it takes place thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones. The prequel series will chronicle the world's descent from the golden age of heroes into its darkest hour. And only one thing is for sure, from the horrifying secrets of Westeros history to the true origin of the White Walkers, the mysteries of the East to the Starks of legend. It's not the story we think we know. So, anyways, it could be very cool. Could be lots of fun. We'll see. I'm not sure about the other ones, though. I have no idea what they are. And George R. R. Martin and nobody has really dropped any hints, but he says they're all in the script stage. So my concern, of course, just like something like Star Wars, is, if they are gonna burn it out,
Yeah. It's hard to manufacture that kind of stuff, though, right? Like these kind of followings. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, it really, I think one of the biggest sells for Game of Thrones, the story and the events are well, it's everything coming together. You have a great story, you have great characters, and you have great actors embodying these characters. So it's everything coming together, and I think that's what's going to have to happen with these other shows, obviously, for everything to really kind of take hold. Because if any of those elements are lacking, I don't think the Game of Thrones name is going to be enough to carry it. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious if they're actually going to call it Game of Thrones, because it seems like it would be a totally different story. Why would they call it Game of Thrones? It's called The Long Night, but it's going to be Game of Thrones: The Long Night. Can they afford to not use that title? Now that they've established the brand, it'd be kind of like taking the Star Wars out of Star Wars. So I'm interested to see what they do with that.
Interesting.
So interesting. So the last thing I was going to talk about briefly, and I'll avoid spoilers because you haven't watched Cobra Kai season 2 yet, right?
No.
So I binged it this past week and I loved it. I love Cobra Kai. Uh, they pulled it off again with this season, and they did it.
How's Martin Cove?
He's very interesting and fun and evil. Um, and
Okay. I gotta ask though, is Thomas Ian Griffith back?
no.
Oh fuck, that would have been cool.
Oh fuck. I mean, that could still happen at some point,
Did
though.
you ever see Thomas Ian Griffith Excessive Force?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I remember, like, it was after when Brandon Lee died. I was like, well, who's gonna be my new hero?
Yeah,
And I tested out Thomas Ian Griffith for a minute, and I was like, nah,
too Irish.
he's not as cool.
He reminds me of my drinking buddies too much. I was growing up.
But there's so many great callbacks in Cobra Kai. Like, it never loses the pulse of what it is, which is, a continuation of the Karate Kid mythology. And there's so many great callbacks to the original movie. There's like flashbacks from things we've never seen before. And there's this
did they
balance.
Play, I am the man who would
Yes.
fight for. Did they really?
They play. I don't know if it's that one or the other. No, they play the other Peter Cetera song.
What
There's
other
two.
song?
There's another one.
Karate Kid.
In Karate Kid 2.
There's I am the man.
There's one other. They play a Peter Cetera song. I can't remember which one. It's when Daniel is on a date with his wife, and they play it. It's really funny. But there's some. What I love about this show is that it balances the humor and the action and the true emotional drama that's going on.
Yeah.
Very well, and that's kind of the epitome of like the Karate Kid is finding balance, right? And this show is just able to find that balance of all of these three different elements, and it just propels it forward. And there's certainly some cheesiness that goes hand in hand with this show, but overall, it really is just a great like ode to what came before while moving and pushing forward everything into the next generation.
I feel like if that show was on Netflix or something, it would be an even bigger deal than it is now, though.
It might be, but I mean, it's the biggest thing YouTube's got. That's for sure.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the only original show still running on YouTube.
Yeah, well, I mean, they kind of need to fucking get something else out there, strike while iron's hot, but they're not. So, but I am so happy that this show exists, and it got renewed for season 3, which is even better. And there's absolutely, it certainly leaves things on a bit of a cliffhanger in a good way. And teases, the return of other characters, and we get some very unexpected guest appearances in this season, which I think make it a lot of fun.
I'm hoping that Elizabeth Shue comes back at some point.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Yeah.
But
because that'd be great.
I think something like that could certainly happen.
I'll tell you though, when I was a kid, I mean, we're talking about crushes. My first big crush was Elizabeth Shue.
Oh yeah, I think everybody.
Oh my God.
For me, it was more from Adventures in Babysitting than Karate Kid, though.
Adventures. It wasn't from Karate Kid. It was from Adventures in Babysitting, and then like Leaving Las Vegas.
That was much older. That's just.
I know. So I think my crush on
boobies.
Yeah, my crush on her continued for years after Adventures in Babysitting, though. But I loved her. I had posters of her and stuff like that. I thought she was the best. Oh my God.
You're like, I want to be a drunk. It's like in Get Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah. Yeah. Did glamorize drinking for me. Led to some problems years later. No, I'm kidding. No.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, let's do some listener questions. What do you say?
Sure.
Let's see here. People give me shit about shaving my beard. I'm sorry, it'll be back in 3 hours. 2 hours now.
By the time this drops, it'll be back.
Yeah, I know, right? It probably will. What movie that you're not excited to see, but you have to see? That's a good question.
Oh God, I mean, half of the movies that come out for me. I mean, that's what being a film critic is, man. That's the job.
I'm trying to think.
I have to go see The Hustle this week. I'm not too excited to see that, but I'm gonna go because it's my job.
I'm trying to think.
I'll be honest, I'm not even that excited to see Detective Pikachu. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fun. My girlfriend's super excited, but I'd probably, if I wasn't reviewing it, I don't know that I'd necessarily go see it in theaters. I'm hoping that I'll be entertained though, because sometimes though, I mean, I remember I wasn't looking forward to seeing Paddington 2 when I went to see it and I ended up loving it. So who knows? You never know. You can be surprised sometimes, and that can be very pleasant.
Yeah. I think you'll like Detective Pikachu. It's
Oh, I'm sure I'll at least like it. Yeah.
perfectly fun and harmless. I had a good time with it. Man, I can't think of one that I'm like, because I kind of have, since I'm not a main reviewer,
Yeah,
I
you
get
don't
the
have to go.
choice, so I don't have to. Um, but sometimes I have to see movies just to like kind of be in the conversation, you know? But I can't think of one that I'm like dreading seeing. Um, yeah, I don't have one. Talk to me later. Maybe something will pop up where I'm like, fuck, I want to see this shit. Anthony, can I give you an update on the Batman? No.
Yeah, no idea. We're not that inside.
Yeah. I mean, the last update was that they are still working, that Reeves is still working on the script. So I think the script is what's kind of delaying the
There'll be
Batman right
some
now.
caped crusading.
There will be. And what happened with the Ezra Miller Flash script debacle? Well, we haven't heard
Who
any news
knows?
on it
Yeah.
because I don't think anything's going to come of it, to be
Yeah, I'm
honest.
pretty sure it didn't pan out. I'm pretty sure we would have heard something by now.
I will be fucking shocked if that works to any capacity. Jack Burton wants to know: do we think with Vulture, Scorpion, Mysterio introduced so far in the MCU, that Marvel will build up to an Avengers type event movie with Sinister Six for Spider-Man? Whoo, say that 10 times fast. Uh, yeah, why not?
I
Uh,
mean, I think Sony after Venom did so well got pretty excited about the potential, and also Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It looks like their kind of Spidey world is doing better than anybody thought it would, creatively as well as financially. So I wouldn't be surprised. I still feel Jared Leto a very odd choice to lead a big tentpole movie, but
well,
it could happen. Yeah, it totally could happen.
well, I mean, we do.
It's more likely to happen now than it was a couple of years ago when they were going to actually do it.
Well, and they've never done Sinister Six. I think that would be
Yeah.
really cool.
Mm.
And I don't think it necessarily has to be all the original Sinister Six guys. I think they could
No.
kind of mix it up a little bit. Maybe pull Venom in there. I think that would be cool. And that's kind of been the way it's been with the MCU has adapted these, it's pulled a lot of reference material and done so faithfully in that sense, but not exactly. There's a big difference between faithfully and exactly. So I think there's wiggle room there where they can kind of make something happen. And ultimately, I'd really like to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man face off with Tom Hardy's Venom. I think that would be a lot of fun. They both got like these very charismatic, human characters they've built, and then they have, their alter egos, which are also just as interesting. So I think it's a much more earned kind of face off
I just
than
want to see. I want to see more
Spider-Man
I
3.
want to see more Spider-Verse. To be honest, that was the most exciting addition to the
I'd love to
franchise
see
so
more
far.
Spider-Verse.
And they're gonna do the show apparently.
Yeah, Chris Lord Miller doing, or they just signed a mega deal to basically make a whole bunch of spin-offs of that, but I would much rather see another movie
Yeah, me
personally.
too.
I don't really have time for an animated series.
Yeah.
So, um last question, Regilio Hernandez, thoughts and expectations with Terminator Dark Fate. Talked about this a couple podcasts ago. I think
Still
it
no
looks
trailer for me, so I can't really say, but I'm cautiously optimistic. But
I think it
I
looks
will
very
say this.
promising.
I will say this though. I try not to get too excited for Terminator sequels.
Yeah, I mean, we've been burned quite a few
Yeah,
times.
many times. And it's like, T2 is amazing, man, but I don't know. Dark Fate, I like the cast. I like the director. It sounds good, but then again, I mean, well, no, I mean, I always thought Terminator's Salvation sounded like it was going to be a disaster. Oh, and no, Terminator Salvation was the one that I thought was going to be good. The one that I thought was going to be bad was Genesis.
Yeah, Genesis. Oh,
Terminator Genesis. I don't even know. Anyway,
yeah, Genesis. That was the last one.
I knew that would be bad. I knew that was going to be terrible.
Yeah, I hoped it would be interesting, but
Oh God.
it ended up being torturous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Mhm.
And somehow they made Emilia Clarke boring.
I think that Dark Fate will be better than that, at any rate.
Dark Fate just looks like it has style and attitude,
Mhm.
and it has it has Sarah Connor back. Linda Hamilton is Sarah Connor, and she looks cool, and it just looks fun. I think it'll be probably the most I don't know, compelling sequel after Terminator 2. Competent, fun, cool. And at least it does look like it has some freshness to it, a little bit of freshness, while still, some throwback shit too. But
Terminator 3 had its moments, but it's been a long time since I've seen it, though. I don't know if it's held up well.
I don't remember ever loving it, and I've never had any desire to revisit.
Yeah, me neither.
I remember they had like the scene where they showed how they got to using Arnold as the model for the T-800.
Oh, Colonel
and
Candy.
he was like a southern
Yeah, that was
fucking
deleted.
jackass.
That was deleted, though.
Oh God, thank God they didn't. I know I saw it, but I saw it on
With the
on
tech,
YouTube.
and it's like, we can change it. We need to do something with the voice. We could fix it.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Fucking dumb.
I'll tell you anything, if I'm excited for anything, though, under the radar movies, Rambo Last Blood.
That shit ain't under the radar. That's full on the radar. That
Oh.
movie's gonna be. Every time Stallone shares like a little video or something on Instagram, it's like, oh shit.
Start masturbating furiously.
with your Tokyo pocket pussy that got you.
It's in the mail. Good.
Yeah, I got you a couple of them.
Oh, nice.
Fuck. I've learned too much. You sick bastard. Or lucky bastard.
Yeah.
Oh. It's gonna be tough for jogging though.
Yeah, not comfortable. There's so many testicles. I mean, 2-3 sticks, so it's like a bag of rocks.
I can't get that out of my head now.
Yeah, between your legs.
Like a dick stacked upon a dick.
Yeah. And a bag of rocks hanging between your legs.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah.
Awful. Anyways, fuck, can't believe we're gonna leave you guys like that, but that's how it's
On
going.
that note, I gotta go teach.
Oh my God, you're a teacher. You're gonna teach people how to say cock and balls
Yes.
in English. Is that correct?
Kind of. I am teaching people English.
Do you say English when you tell them that?
English.
English.
English. Sorry.
English. Sorry. All right. Well, that's it for us this week. Thanks for joining us. Check us out on Instagram, Beard and the Bald Podcast, and check us out on iTunes. Give us a review, only if it's nice. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next week. I will have my beard back, I promise, and be back on the up and up, respectable like. Don't buy pocket pussies in Japan. See you next week.